And Franchise India is Start Your Own Business Specialist, right? Which works with business buyers, aspiring entrepreneurs like you to help you take an informed decision of taking a business. So I'll set a perspective to the next 30 minutes of what all we would talk about. So we'll talk a little bit about Franchise India as a company, what we do, and also on the important assessment tools that every investor must undertake before investing in any business opportunity. And friends, if you have any questions, you can use the Q&A box. You can write your questions. You can mention your city. I'll be happy to also understand your profiles. If you want to mention your details, you can put that in the Q&A box. I'll be happy to read that out and answer that live for all of you. So our platform of Franchise India has been, in fact, helping and working with prospective franchisees to research franchise opportunities, evaluate business options, and also learn from the industry experts. Over the last 2.5 or decades, I would say millions of business buyers have actually trusted the platform of Franchise India to research these business options from maybe a small investment unit franchisee to a multi-unit franchisee to an area and master franchisee of some of the most renowned national brands. And at the same time, we also had the privilege of working with nearly 2 lakh plus investors who we work very closely in giving them guided solutions in the entire journey of buying a business, where we combined our knowledge, our expertise, experience, and more importantly, I would say our validated learning of the industry, working with thousands of companies and millions of investors that helped us to bring that intelligence and pass on that learning and intelligence to people who are getting into business for the very first time. So what is franchising and how big the industry is something I would also like to touch upon. And if we consider franchising an option to start a business, relatively there are only 3 ways one can start their own business. And very obviously start your own business, which a lot of startups today are doing in the country. So you can do your own startup. Second is you can buy something which is running and operating, and you can take that business over, which is maybe buying an existing business. Right. So that's one way of starting a business where you take over something which is operating, which is running, run by somebody else, and you take the ownership of that. And third is to run a franchise business. So these are the only 3 ways by which one can own and run a business. So out of these 3, Franchise India works with business buyers in helping them take franchisees of Indian brands, international brands across all industries. And we also work with business owners to help them buy an existing business. Right? We work with a lot of companies who want to exit their business or sell their businesses. So we also work with investors where we work with you, understand your requirements, and help you in these 2 options. Now, coming to franchising, while it creates a lot of intelligence synergies because it is the combined strength of the company, the brand, the franchisor, and a franchisee who collaborate with each other to make the business sustainable. And also franchising as an industry, it cuts across every segment, every industry. And I'm sure if you have been following franchising for quite some time, you would agree that we have seen successful franchise companies across all sectors. Hence, every business, I would say is good. But you as an independent investor, it is important that you find your own fitment of what is right for you, which should be based on a very inclusive and integrated approach. Right? So what is right for me might not be right for you. Now, it all depends on the interest. It depends on my area of expertise or experience, the finances that I want to put in the business. More importantly is also the time that I want to put in the business. And also the risk appetite as an investor I have to take up a business. So while a business buyer does that, even a company also takes into consideration a lot of filters when they select a partner, because it also affects the image of the company, the goodwill of the brand. So there are also a few requirements that companies take into consideration, such as credit score, net worth of an individual, cash in hand, how much time he puts in the business. His experience sometimes is relevant because some industries prefer people from specific backgrounds. So we say that you must undertake thorough due diligence before you invest in any opportunity, right? So why franchising? So if you look at the industry at large, it is very important, any business that you want to get in or take up, we definitely want to understand how big that industry is. And if the opportunity seems bright, is it going to be relevant in the times to come? Is it going to also sustain in the times to come? So I'll talk a little bit on that, what this industry is all about and why we feel and we say it is not just today, but maybe the next 10 years, 20 years, the fundamentals when it comes to franchising would always be very strong. Right. And we've been seeing that for the last 27 years, ever since, we started this company. And that point in time, there was nobody else in the industry who was actually solving that problem for people, right? So India is a very big entrepreneurial market, which has a very big legacy of people who want to start a business, and fondly called a shopkeeper nation, where we have every home who wants to start a business. There was nobody who was actually solving that need, right? So there were platforms where people could reach out if they wanted to invest in a property, if they were looking at any kind of education consultancy. All these platforms existed, but the biggest need, which is starting your own business, that need was not being fulfilled by anyone, right? So that's when we started our journey back in 1999. And because we felt this was a big industry, and I'll tell you why, because franchising globally is also a very big impact market, and that stands true also in the scenario of our Indian market, because everything that you're consuming today, whether you're consuming a product, whether you're consuming a service, so if we give you some examples of the businesses that are being consumed by us, sometimes we don't realize even the optical store, for example, you're going to, the school that your child is going to, the pharmacy that you're going to, the quick commerce services that you're consuming from companies like Zepto, Blinkit, hospitals that you go to, five-star hotels that we go to, almost everything is coming from a franchised business today. And this industry cuts across every industry. We have all seen successful franchise companies across all these sectors. So in system sales globally, franchising is almost about $4.8 trillion. And India is the second largest market in franchising after America. And the fundamentals of consumption in India are very, very strong. And this is what makes franchising also very, very interesting, because franchising and consumption are proportionate, right? So as the consumption increases, so would be the demand for franchising and also the businesses in franchising. The next 10 years, we reckon that this industry is going to be 10x of what it is today. Today, the size of this industry is $180 billion. Now, the next 10 odd years, multiply that with the average rate of 25 to 30%, and you can imagine that this industry would see a 10x growth. Now, this industry also accounts 4% of our GDP. So the entire GDP of a country, 4% of that comes from franchise business. Multiply that, and 10 years from now, the GDP would grow. Imagine the impact of the GDP on franchising, because when these businesses would grow in proportion, the percentage of growth of franchising to the national GDP would also increase. Another interesting phenomena which I also want to talk about is India, as I said, has a very big entrepreneur legacy. Way back in 1999, when we started our business, while there was a latent need for people who wanted to start a business, but there was reluctance, because starting a business involved some amount of risk, because there was no security of income. The risk in the business was high. So, but over the years, you would not believe, this community of first-time business buyers have become very, very big in India. Back in 1999, out of 100 people who were buying businesses, I would say there were 10 to 15% community that was buying business for the very first time. So when I say first-time business buyers, they had no experience of running a business. Neither their generation before had any experience of running a business. But today, this community has become 6x of what it was 27 years back. Out of 100 people who buy business in the country, or the demand, I would say, 60% of that business are bought by a community which is called the first-time business buyer, right? So that this community is becoming very, very big. And that is also true, because if you look at the overall growth, most consumer categories, I talked about consumption, that is increasing, and so would be proportionate impact on the franchising. And consumption is a very big lever of growth. So most consumer categories, if you look at in 1991 to now, about 33 years back, These all categories that we consume today have become 3.5 times larger than what they were back in 1990s. Right? So when these consumption categories have become big, that means that these categories and businesses would also need a bigger distribution, right? Because the demand is big and the supply also has to work in tandem. And so these are some of the I would say dynamics which makes the industry very, very strong. And equally important to understand is also when we look at consumption, there's a lot of formalization which is happening. So when I say formalization, today, everything that is being consumed is coming from a branded environment. And we have all witnessed the modernization of retail with the industry. Product industry in the last 20 years. Now is the time for modernization of service industry, which is also becoming branded, right? So when I say service industry, these includes services from quick commerce, right? Laundry services, direct to consumer healthcare services. All these services are all becoming branded, and we had all started to consuming what we were doing with product 20 years back. The same impact the business or overall services is seeing in this category. Now, I'll talk a little bit about, the important assessment tools. It is very important because I understand starting a business is the most critical decision that somebody has to take in their lifetime. And the entrepreneur journey is not easy. It requires a lot of planning. It requires planning on your timelines. It requires planning on the finances. And so we always advise don't rush into taking that decision, but put in sufficient time, do your own in-depth research before you jump on to take a decision to buy a business. So at Franchise India, what we have done is, based on our experience of these many years working with companies, understanding what models work, what don't work, and working with the investors and understanding their mindset, we curated, an assessment tool that we recommend is very, very important for any business buyer, irrespective of the investment you want to make, irrespective of the industry that you want to get in. We recommend these are the assessment tools which every business buyer must consider. And if you want to take a note, maybe I'll also shortly put that on the screen. So there are 5 assessment tools we recommend. One is your own self-assessment. So we call it self-assessment, where we assess our readiness to start a business. So we align our life goals. The second is assessment of the industry that we want to get in, how big the opportunity is. So we analyze the industry. And the third assessment tool is a market assessment, which is the place that you want to open, the receptiveness of the market to a business or an industry that we want to open. Fourth assessment tool is the competitive assessment tool, where we do a peer-to-peer comparison. Now, this could be maybe one category where I want to invest. I look at similar businesses in that category, the performance of that business, and the penetration of these businesses. And finally comes our assessment of the company that we want to finalized. So 5 assessment tools: self-assessment, industry assessment, market assessment. We have peer-to-peer, which is competition assessment, and the brand assessment. So these 5 assessment tools, in fact, lay the foundation that can assist you to evaluate your level of fitment. And these assessment tools will be very, very different to each and every individual. So what we have done is, we created an assessment tool where we also created these 25 points where you can tick mark on these 25 points on your readiness of investment in a business. And if you have a score which is upwards of 20, then the opportunity selected is great. If you have a score which is, say, 15 to 20, it is good enough, decent enough to be selected. But if your overall score on that assessment criteria is under 15 points, then we advise you to go back, understand where we scored less, and then maybe rework on the entire assessment structure. So very quickly, I'll show that also on the screen, but let me take a moment to describe all these 25 opportunity assessment criteria. So what we did, we took a very holistic understanding of what these traits should be. Now, starting with self-assessment, first and foremost, it is important to understand, like I said, your own mindset as an entrepreneur. And entrepreneurship would have a different meaning to all of us here. It means different to me. It means different to all of you here. So what entrepreneurship means to you here, what you need to do is you need to align 2 things, right? So one is your own life goals, right? What you want to achieve in your life. And second is the business goal alignment. Unless and until the life goals and the business goals are aligned, we cannot proceed ahead selecting the opportunity. So that is a self-discovery stage for us, understanding what we need, alignment of the goals. And the second is very specifically on the financial goals, right? Any investment that we plan to do in our life has a set target of what kind of finances return that we want on the investment. So when I talk about financial goal, there are three things that we must understand, and these three things are first is the timeline. What is the timeline for you to achieve that financial goal? And this could be long term, mid term, short term, depending on what stage you need, what kind of finances, right? Second is the risk as a business buyer or a business owner that you're willing to put, and third is the return that you expect. Now, it is very important all these three are actually aligned. So unless we have answers to all these three, it becomes difficult for us to go and select any specific business. So timeline, return, and risk that we want to take. Now, let me also explain that with the help of an example. When we look at investments that we do, now, there are different asset classes where investments are done, right? Some are passive investments, some are active investments where we put our day-to-day operations and we put our time in day-to-day operations. So most of the active businesses come with the high risk, right? And these businesses would also give you higher rewards. So any asset class that our investments would go in, they have three fundamental goals to be achieved. And this is the mindset of an entrepreneur or the investor who puts his capital behind these investment. The first fundamental goal of the investment is safety. A lot of us would come with a mindset, I might not be willing to have very high returns, but whatever money I'm investing, I want safety and security of that investment. Right? The second goal is income, which is you want to generate some sort of income from the investment that you have put. And third goal is growth. You want to spend that capital and want to have high returns on the investment. So risk and return rewards are also proportionate. So when I say I am looking at an investment which is very safe, I'm also telling myself this is a low risk business, but equally low rewarding business. So low risk would mean low return. Income based businesses would mean moderate risk and moderate return. And growth centric businesses would mean I'm willing to take a higher risk on the investment, but equally expecting higher rewards. And this is how businesses are also structured. So a lot of businesses, some of these businesses are owned and operated by a franchisee. Some businesses are run by the company, but a franchisee makes an investment. And in these businesses, companies to a certain extent also hedge the risk of the investor. And companies come with very innovative models. Even companies like Chroma, for example, they do a franchisee and company operated model. They bring in the entire inventory. They only expect a partner to bring in the capex in the business, security deposit, and take care of only one expense ongoing, which is a rental. They don't expect you to put any investment in the inventory, right? So the different companies, depending at what stage they are and what kind of fitment they're looking from their partner in the business, companies come out with different models in franchising, right? And depending on your own alignment of your financial goal, these models can fit in where we can advise you. This is one example which I gave, but there are multiple businesses. The third thing which you must look at is, how much time you're putting in the business. Like I said, active businesses, franchising is all about active businesses. So largely, 95% of businesses in India and globally are businesses where franchisees are required to put their day-to-day time in the operations. And that's where a lot of efficiency in the business comes in. So anybody who has minimum of 3 hours in a business is called a operator franchise. Some businesses would need a higher number of hours depending on the industry, and especially the first 6 months, comparatively, your time involvement in the business is higher. The second is your industry assessment, which means how do you assess what the attractiveness of the industry. So what goes in understanding the industry assessment is how big that opportunity size is, which means how big is the addressable market, what the current players who are addressing that opportunity. Do I, as a business owner, stand a chance of taking some pie from the overall opportunity? Is it overcrowded? Is it commoditized, so to say? Can I, as a business owner, have the first mover advantage if you invest in specific businesses? So these are all answers that you get when you do your entire industry assessment, including, I think, one big criteria, which we say, how big are the growth prospect in the business? So any investment that we do has to have relevance, or I would say future fitness for at least the next 5 to 10 years. So any industry or a category that you feel does not show you the next 5 years or 10 years of path are not the opportunities that you must consider. Third is the market assessment. Typically, it would mean what you need to do is understand what industry you're getting in, what stage of the business are we getting it? Is the industry new? Sometimes the question also comes in, sometimes the industry is new and the market receptiveness might not be that great. And companies also take a stage by approach of entering different markets, right? And that's what happened in the electric vehicle when they were launched. Today, states like Tamil Nadu, UP, Maharashtra, they are the leading states where the adoption of electric vehicle is the highest, right? So we understand the stage at which the business is, we understand the industry. Now, when I say stage, it could be a startup stage, it could be a company at a growth stage, it could be a company at a scale stage. And at different stages of their life cycle, companies look at a very different strategy of how they want to enter market. And they have a great go-to-market strategy, sometimes for their new or first-time partners who come and partner with these companies. Right? And the fourth thing is competition assessment, right? So when you look at a new opportunity, you also need to look at least 4 to 5 competition in the same category. Look at the advantages which the competition has over the brand, which includes it could be margins, it could be go to market, it could be support structure given by the brand, their support in selection of a property. I think this is one area which is considered by a lot of investors. I see sometimes a lot of companies, even when these companies are startup, they give a lot of support their partners to get the right location, right? So these are some of the considerations which should be taken by an investor when they look and select a company, including even a barrier to entry, right? So sometimes a company has a edge over the other. So it could be in terms of, now when I say barrier to entry, it could be some kind of licensing requirement. It could be some kind of technology which brand A has over brand B. It could be government regulations, which all become important when you consider one brand over the other. And finally comes your brand assessment. How do you assess the brand? So which should also take into consideration things like the people who are behind, the founder, the management, the leadership, how their brand has performed in the past. If the company has already been into franchising, you must also speak to some of the existing franchise owners and take their feedback. Understand the margins, understand how big the horizon of that opportunity is, the ROI, as we call in our simple terms, understand what are the legal terms in the agreement. And when we talk about legal terms, it is very important to understand, because in India, we work on the contract law. So anything that becomes which is put in the contract becomes a binding between both the parties. And these franchise agreements are very, very watertight, right? So it is important that we understand which are the clauses in the agreement which are flexible, because some clauses the company also gives some kind of flexibility to agree, while certain clauses which is related to the goodwill of the company are important, where companies don't give that flexibility and they're inflexible on those. So we understand the entire legal framework. And lastly is also the support that you get from the company, right? So which is the initial training, ongoing training, the marketing support, what you as a franchisee need to also bring in on the table ongoing. So what I'll do, friends, I'll just quickly, put my screen on. Wait, just give me a moment. I'll request if you want to take a screenshot, you can do that. But even if your timeline to start a business is short, right? So even if you want to start a business, sometimes when I speak to investors, they want to start the business immediately. Irrespective, your timeline is a week, 15 days, a month, don't bypass any of these assessment tools. So these were the 5 assessment tools I talked about: self-assessment, industry assessment, the market that you want to bring the business in, the peer, which is the competition assessment, and finally the brand that we want to close. I hope you can all see my screen. Sometimes, it is moving, but might not be moving when you see. If you don't see that moving, guys, you can write and maybe I would know. Now, this is an important slide, the 25 points which I talked about. If you can also take a screenshot of this, these are 25 assessment tools. All these assessment tools are very, very important, but in certain cases, one of them would weigh higher, right? So maybe the assessment of the brand would be 7 on 7. The industry would be 4. And in certain other assessment analysis, the numbers, the points might be overall, not that great, which is perfectly fine. But if your overall score is 20 and plus, then the opportunity that you've selected is perfectly fine. Sometimes what would happen, the brand is great, but the industry and the market that you want to open might not be right. So there can be some combinations which might not go well. And when we work with any of our franchisees who want to start a business, we follow a three-stage structure, right? So if you see on my screen, these are 4 stages that we have split the entire process in, which is information stage, evaluation stage, negotiation, and closure. So these three stages largely are very important. These are 3 business buying stages: information, evaluation, negotiation, which are part and parcel of every business process. So when I say information stage, this is where you as the business buyer must acquaint yourself on the opportunities which are available, understand the industries, understand the brands who are open for your market, and then based on that understanding, we work with you to evaluate. Maybe we understand your investment, we understand the finances you want to bring in, then we evaluate and bring you on one-to-one meetings and calls with these companies. And now this evaluation is based on the 4 fitments that is done by Franchise India and our team of advisors in 97 cities, where we work with you. If you see the screen, it says 4 fitments. Strategic fit means your own profiling. It could be education, experience, business. Operational fit is the O that you see on the screen, which means your time involvement in the business. Some businesses, like I said, might need high quantum of time involvement. Some businesses might not need so much of time involvement. And this time involvement also depends on the requirement of the brand. A lot of companies, like I said, which does not need the requirement of time from a franchise partner, largely the investment in these companies is higher, right? So for example, Chroma, the investment would start from say 4 crore onwards. And there are businesses like 5-star hotels where the company takes care of all over management of the hotels, but a franchise partner brings in a property, he puts the entire capex. So second is operational fit, third is market fit where you want to open, and fourth is the financial fitment, which is the investment that you want to make, liquidity that you have, how much loan, if that has to be taken, you want to bring in on the table. So based on these 4 fitments, we evaluate if that opportunity syncs with, these fitments. Followed by this, we follow, deal structuring, which takes the largest number of time at our end. So even while you've selected the brand, I've seen people take almost 3 to 4 months. I think yesterday there was a deal of Nika, that we closed in Bangalore, and there's another deal of a brand called Luxon, which we closed yesterday. But these deals had been going on for almost 3 odd months, where the franchise partner was scouting for a location, and we were able to, finalize a location some days back, and they concluded the deal. So the structuring of the deal sometimes is where the largest quantum of time goes in. And finally comes a stage where we work with business buyers, franchisees to sign up the letter of intent and the agreement. So these are 4 stages, friends, that we run you through. And largely, these are 10 important, I would say, advantages that every investor gets when they work with Franchise India consultants, which includes your self-evaluation meeting, industry selection. We work with you, we spend 1 hour on that, a minimum of 10 discovery days, which is the brands that you've selected. We work with you to get meetings done. Our teams participate in all these meetings, physical meetings, virtual meetings. We also do 15 discovery days in case, now depending on the membership that you take, it is from 6 months to 12 months. Our commitment would actually vary. And it also includes our legal advice at Frank Legal, which is part of Franchise India legal outfit, where we also work with companies and also investors to vet their legal agreement and finally get them through along with the brand. And 2 hours, which you see is the highest number of man hours that we spend on any deal structuring, right? So 2 hours, while it's the minimum commitment, in certain cases, it even extends. We did a deal for a very big giant company into beverage, which took us almost about 6 months to structure the deal because the requirement from that company was very, very specific. And we have to, follow and get that deal structured, which took us 6 months. Even after the profile of the investor was okay, the company had a structure under which they had to qualify and present it. And finally comes the mediation, which means that if there is anything that requires participation from Franchise India, because we are pure facilitators, we don't have too much of scope to exercise, but wherever needed, we'll be happy to consider our participation. So friends, this is what we had for the day. We'll be happy if you have any questions. We'll be happy to answer. And also, I'll leave my email ID. If you want to reach out, you can put your questions here. I'm also putting our hotline number, which is 9717-683-838. Right. So 9717-683-838. If you want to reach out, if you want to invest in any business, So, Ms. Juhi ji, it is any business, franchising is open. Every industry, you'll find businesses which are open to franchising. So, irrespective of your investment, Franchise India has opportunities starting as low as 10 lakhs, go up to maybe 100 plus crores. Depending on the industry, depending on the city of your interest, our teams can in fact speak to you to understand your interest and accordingly advise to you. Franchise India has team in 97 cities. So most probably, I would say 99% wherever you are from, our local teams can be available to meet with you. Juhi ji, I don't know what specifically you talked about. I'll request, I'll share with you my WhatsApp number. If you can perhaps call me, 8800. So I'm putting my WhatsApp number. If you want to reach out to me, we can speak post the webinar. So thank you, friends, for being with us. Have a great day ahead.